Boring. We have mine.
It's tough to depend on
That's
you.
Lynn's fault.
I don't need it because I have it up.
Steve, we're ready to start.
Yes, sir. We're gonna call to order at 5:19 PM. Think we have everybody.
Might have to move your mic a little closer.
Why?
Otherwise, they're not gonna hear you.
Hi, Leslie. Are there any changes to this agenda? I don't think so, right? Good to go?
I think we're good to go.
All right, let's move forward. Obviously, let's get to the point with the feasibility survey discussion. If you want to just leave it right up to you, I guess, right?
Surely,
You want to just talk right about the results, get right to it, right?
everyone had a chance to look at
A
them.
little bit, yes.
Great job compiling.
So I'll just cut right to the chase. So I think we have about 900 people in total respond. We had, I guess the bottom line number is if it's like amongst the residents, 70% support. 23% say, I don't know, it depends, and 7% say no.
Great.
So I think that hopefully shows you a fair amount of support.
For sure. And what I was looking at, even if you're looking at something like a pool, even though only 236 wanted competition size, it's still 400 total people said they want a pool of some sort.
So again, and I like to think again, of the way we routed the survey, of course, we asked them whether they support the idea in general. We gave them a lot of choices, like, hey, we could have this, you notice that there was a fair amount of support for a number of things. But then specifically said, there is a cost associated with this. Knowing that, what do you think? So amongst those who got through the point where they said, yes, I will support this idea, or I don't know, I'll let you know. I think what came out is with the cost, 55% of those that like the idea said they would support an indoor walking track, 52% meeting rooms, and 51% multi-use rooms. So those were the ones that a majority, even given the cost, would support it. Kind of the next tier was fitness center at 44%, a small community kitchen at 41%. Again, would support given the cost of those particular facilities. And 33% said a recreational pool. Now, on the flip side of that, when you look at those people that support, but even without an associated cost, things that really were fairly low, where only a small percentage of people, even without a cost attributed to it, really would support a competition size pool, a commercial grade kitchen, and maker space and craft room. So in some, there seems to be pretty broad support for the concept of a community center. And there's pretty broad support for specific aspects, a little less support for some others. I don't know, did anyone have any chance to actually read through the comments?
I do.
Yeah, there was a lot of comments.
There were a lot of comments. But again, what you see is the same thing, which is that's like, this is a great idea for the community. This is what the community needs. It's like, this is what we've been waiting for in this community, a place for all the community to get together, types of things that we're probably not surprised if you read those types of comments.
But I also found the comments to be very almost double-sided, if you would, because they're like, I would support it, but how would that affect my taxes? Well, you kind of just went through that whole process.
Right, and that's why.
To give you a general idea of how it would affect your taxes, you know? There are definitely a few things that specifically stood out in those comments, and I don't know if we want to get into that just now, but, it was very enlightening to read the comments for sure.
Right, and they fell into two, one of which is, what do you think about this general idea? Of course, it's like, there are people that supported, there are people that didn't support it, there are people that said it depends. I think that's where you saw it. It depends on exactly what it costs us.
Right, right.
in order to- And then there was that other section which you asked, beyond, these basic facilities, what would you like to be doing there? And there was a long list of things that people want to be doing at the community center.
Yeah.
I felt that the people who filled it out by paper tended to be less positive. That they certainly heard about it, they saw it, they came in, they picked up the paperwork, they made sure it got to our office. I think the ones you put in were probably about half and half. Yeah. And then I've had a couple cents that came in like on the deadline. So I think that, there is that sense of how are we going to pay for this? And the biggest question from the people who were negative was, I don't want my taxes to go up any higher than they have.
Who wouldn't want a community center if your taxes don't go up at all?
Right.
And again, and this is, this is the challenge that we have in the survey reach, which is, and again, that's why we try to introduce this cost idea into the survey itself. Again, it's still this idea out there. It's like, it's this formless, vague idea. It's like, well, yeah, dude, well, okay, I know there's a cost, but it's a little different saying I'm willing to pay for this than, oh, I just got my tax bill. And so, again, there's support out there, but again, it's like, I think it's like, it's still something you gotta sell.
Hey, we did it during the month of April when people were paying their taxes, so they were very cognizant of that.
But again, I think it's like, at least, it gives you a direction to go. I think it at least gives you, here's some clear things as we build it, they seem to want, here are some things, yeah, we don't really need to even consider.
What things were those?
So what I would say, it's like, if you look at the question before we go to the actual cost implications. Again, only a small percentage of people said that they want a competition size pool, a commercial grade kitchen or a maker space.
Okay, so I understand that, but, so the pool, you still had over 50% of people say they want some sort of a pool.
Right, but these are just, it's like, if you have them assess this thing before there's even a cost implication to them. You have, less than a third that are interested in these types of things. Now, those, as you notice, if you go to the next, when we introduce a cost, it's like the percentage drop. It's like, oh, yes, putting a cost is right, well, that's probably not something I really want to deal with, given the fact that it is that expensive. So like I said, I think that way, there's a clear set of things that probably I would say that people are saying that if we're gonna build a community center, they're probably not necessary. Regardless, it's like, given the cost, it's like, even, now we build the costs of your support for those things goes even lower.
Mark, from your experience, is there same rental opportunities for a pool as opposed to a competition pool?
More opportunities, I think, for the recreation pool for rental
Oh, really?
from the competition. So it's a smaller pool to have to maintain, to operate. And most of the time, it's your higher usage is gonna be more informal opportunity for people to use pools, so.
I think Steve had the numbers for Wiscasset at one point, and the money they make off of pool rental, not just lessons and everything,
right.
is what sustained them.
The swim team.
Yeah, well, the swim team, but also the birthday parties. I can remember that conversation with
Well, the swim team
Lori.
was almost 200,000 per year. That's from the Wiscasset swim team and all that, which,
They have a single pool at Wiscasset?
is that, would that be considered competition sized?
Well,
I don't think it is.
it's 6 lanes,
Right.
but they're not full lanes.
Yeah.
So I think that when COVID hit, the pool, Wiscasset pool was used for meets. They kind of condensed what they could do when Bowden didn't open up right away like everything else did. And they couldn't rent Bowden. I think they used the Wiscasset community pool. So I'm not sure.
Waterville has both, and I'm sure they'll help us with what their numbers are.
Yeah, yeah. And it was Wiscasset who couldn't meet with us on Saturday, so I kind of felt like if we're gonna do the trip, we need to do it all together. So we should talk at the end of today about that, what's another day that works for folks. But, I think Wiscasset, I mean, the things I'm really aware with Wiscasset is they're stretched to the end to take care of that facility staff-wise. And I think that's what you would hear over and over for them. The pool has a director and that person manages that portion. But the director has 2 other people that work for him and that's it. And if you talk to Dwayne, or we can tell you, we don't talk to Dwayne because we can't get a hold of Dwayne.
They designed the Wiscasset pool really cleverly, I think, because it has the 6-lane competition style where you enter by a ladder, but it's also divided by a wall where there's a 0 entry. So you could have little children's lessons going on at the same time as a bigger thing.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
It also helps with people with mobility. I've seen, like, it's, water PT being done there, and I've seen people go into the water even with their walker.
And again, that's one thing that was, that would have been challenging to really assess with the survey. So what they've seen is, how do you like things without a cost? How do you like things with a cost? We might actually, it probably, I would presume when things get built, it's gonna be in the middle ground, because you're gonna be able to do things like rent out space. But again, that's, again, I think that, Mark, that's probably part of your plan. It's like, yeah, since we do this, it's like, we will probably, based upon what we've seen in other communities, and be able to generate this much income to offset these taxes. But yeah, it's a real challenging thing to try to get at this survey.
Yeah, I guess, curious if people felt that this gave more specificity to what you, ultimately answering the question, what is the community looking for? And there's a quantitative and qualitative, and you sort of kind of put them together. But you definitely have sort of a strong, quantitative, metric in that, there's, when you just ask people, are you interested in a community center? 70% is a pretty strong number.
Yeah. Leslie, I felt that the numbers from this one were very similar to the one we did back in 2022. Did you?
Yeah, I think there was a slightly more, I think 80% on the last one with a few more people, but I thought it was close.
I think this one put numbers to things, the other one didn't. The other one
Yep.
just talked about space.
Do you ever see places, Mark, where they go to vote on the, say, the bonding or proceeding, where you pick a site big enough so that even if you can't do, say, a pool now, there's room for the future, but the vote has 2 options. So you vote on the basic building to see if people want to do that has the items that are 70% support supposedly. And then you have an option that people can vote on doing a pool now.
100%. Yeah, so you could do a sort of, here's the base, and we vote yes or no on the base. Sometimes actually having that pushes more in favor of the base option because they felt like they've got a choice and they can limit the cost in doing that. It's not sort of a take it all or nothing. So
That's what happened when they built the high school with the turf field. The turf field was left alone with an agreement that that would be fundraised. Should they decide to go that way, should there be a larger increase?
yeah, and then of course, you can always look at where you do choose a site to consider the base for the future too. So you develop something initially that gets people in, gets sort of things started, gets revenue going, builds excitement in the community, and then maybe there's a 15-year or 20-year cycle of bond payments, and then what does the next piece of that look like, or do you have fundraising, or philanthropy that then, plays into it as well.
Great, so that's probably enough about results from the survey, I'd say.
There you go. Other than that, you did get a fair number of people say they're willing to help.
I'll give this a start for sure. Then we have to talk about our next steps.
I guess I feel that before you present this to the selectmen with a final report, that the tour of the facilities would be important for people to see and know what we're talking about. And I know with conversations that with one of the selectmen who has actually attended a couple of our meetings, how we fund it and what type of partnerships we form are some of his questions. And I think we'll get that, so that it would be good, especially to see Waterville for that, because that's a Boys and Girls Club and a Y with the community.
So, Mark, your report that you produced.
Right.
Will take into account the results of this survey, the results of the focus groups, your expertise, and what type of, not asking what your final opinion is, but what can we kind of expect it to be to the select board?
Well, what we want to do is we want to condense the information just to what is going to be helpful for them. I'm assuming you only have, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes or so that you would have available. I don't know how much.
Yeah.
So you want to give them an overview of all of the process that you went through to evaluate it, because this is all leading up to the ultimate question is they want to know from you, what does the community want? And so you looked at current programming, you looked at the consideration of a survey with costs associated with it. Here are the results that we heard. Here's what the community is saying, not only the numbers. The numbers are easy to digest in a presentation like that. You can't summarize. I don't know how many hundreds of comments we had, but you can put some basis around it. And so that development, and then I think the idea of looking at what other communities have for comparable facilities. And I think that right there gives them a good basis of what it is. And I think what was getting helpful is then you have a somewhat realistic expectation of what the order of magnitude impact is in terms of cost. And then it's I suppose, a community conversation at that point to say, okay, what do we as a community want to put forward? Do we want to put a proposal towards to the community that says we're willing to ask the community to pay additional monies and taxes to support a community center? And you're going to get perhaps a different, you may have the people who participated in the survey that were probably more pro-community center than those who are not interested in the community center. So your numbers will probably come down a little bit, but you, again, can feel pretty strongly that this is not the first time, it's the second time that you received similar results of these, of the community's input on that. And so the report will have more detail on all of that in the background, but that's a summary of really what you folks have been up to at this point.
And then, as you recall, we kind of bifurcated your process from the original quote.
Yeah.
Would the next step be to continue with the second half of what initially, not to say maybe the price is gonna change some, but the second half of what you quoted, and that was what, more of a facility design?
That's
Is that-
a concept. So let's say that the idea is that there is interest in moving forward to the next level. And in order to put a real number, a real more substantiated cost of what a community center might look like, you would say, well, here's what we think that we're willing that we would put before the community. So is it just a basic design? Is it a basic design with a few additional items? And you only want to pay for the design that you need to get to a real solid number. And so that sometimes it's called a concept design or a schematic design. And that's approximately 15% of a total design process, but it's enough definition to say, this is the site that's going to go on. Here's the different components that are going to be the spaces that are going to be in the building itself. Here's how we're going to develop systems to heat and cool the building. So all of that information definition to get to a cost estimator that can say, in Maine, at this particular time, this is what we can anticipate the construction cost can be for that. And that gives you a degree of certainty to go to the community and say, to put a bond and cost together. That would be the next phase.
So, judging on past comments of the select board and some of the committee survey, I think we're also gonna have to start, fundraising process. If not actually kicking it off, but we start preliminary, and then there's the site discussion.
Right.
We've got a few in mind, but it seems like those would be, I guess, the three next steps would be to have you work more in the design process, start the legwork where you do the fundraising process, and then obviously figure out a site.
Site selection, because site selection does impact the design, substantially. In fact, that's one of the precursors to actually getting into the building design, thinking about how you would arrange the parks. Is there a multiple grade? Also, not only the internal program, but an external program. Are you looking at ball fields? Even if there are future considerations, you want to think about that as you're selecting your site now. Access to utilities, do you need to bring power and sewer and water into the site? Or does it exist there? So all of those will have an impact on cost. So site selection is really the precursor to the actual concept design of the building itself.
Okay. That's helpful.
Is there the ability to dive even deeper into the Java that we have at all?
So the constraints we had is we ended up not adding any demographic information. So this to make it so that people felt that they could answer anonymously.
Sure.
Two, the other thing, and I think Mark, I gave this to you, which is kind of the bigger picture. If you combine, say, that table there with, but add in all the people that say, I don't want something. You can get a better sense of, what is the support for a specific aspect of your facility amongst the entire community. Again, these numbers reflect those people said, yes, I support a committee, or I don't know. It does not factor in that small percentage of people said, no, I don't really want anything. And so that gives you another look at, kind of a broader perspective, what it's like across the entire community, including those people who may or may not want this. What are those percentages? And you can kind of rough it out because it, 7% is not gonna drop. Because you're gonna have to do it.
Well, I'm thinking more,
To the other thing that you have not, that we have actually not assessed yet is, there are all those comments that say, great, we're building a facility. What are we gonna do with this facility? To, again, we can say, oh, yes, I want this and this and this, but, well, wait a second, all the activities that they're talking about are things that, we need to do something else with. Oh my gosh, everyone wants to play softball. We didn't actually ask them about putting in a softball field. So that would be the next place I look. I would get a sense of, do the things that people look at in terms of the activities that they want at this facility align with the types of facilities that you're building? Or is there some sort of gap between the two?
But I think a lot of that was sort of how we built this process through the focus groups, listening to everyone, what are your wants?
Yeah.
And then that led into the list that we have, and then, so I think in some ways that encompasses the majority of what we've heard.
I did find the comments, though, there was a lot of, when we asked them, what would you like to see? There was a lot of stuff for outside playgrounds and fields and stuff like that, splash pads and that sort of thing. There was a lot of outside stuff mentioned in the comments. So that would harken back to, like you said, the outside planning for further down the road for sure. That seemed to be a common theme as well. Fields, whatever the case may be. But I think the long-term planning, depending on how big our lot ends up being, I think that's very crucial. It would be nice, probably not in my lifetime, but if it would eventually turn into some type of big complex, bigger than the four-side fields, to have the playground and to have the ball fields and to have the splash pads and to really make it a go-to place. With this just being the big piece, the one starting place. I can dream big, right?
Well, that seems to be an important consideration that if that's, future planning, if you buy, well, we got this much space, our building fits it perfectly, that kind of constrains you from doing anything else. So I think, that's an important concept, just to make sure that, because these are all, yes, this is what the people said, this is what I want to facilitate. It's like, these are not necessarily all the activities. So, and these are all oddly enough, we assess things that are in a building. We didn't actually assess things like, bocce ball courts and.
And part of that might have been, because again, the frugal, push way back in the beginning of this.
Right.
We have beautiful outdoor facilities and a lot of space currently at 3 different levels, of course, I feel, and some of it's protected forever for
Right.
land, water conservation stuff. But the thought was, what we don't have is the indoor facility, so to try to be as frugal as possible,
Right.
let's focus on the indoor. Maybe we get lucky and there's a place we can build it beside Forsyth Field, and maybe we can build it near Forsyth Field.
Right, but it's more of a managing expectation thing, it's like, this is great, but I want this, this, and this, and this around it too. That then what you might get is a little more pushback, say, well, that's not what I said I would support. So it's again, just to make sure that there's no huge gap between, oh, this is great, I like this facility, but it's like, here's all the things I envision doing at this place. That there's just not something that just got left out.
Well, there is, on the outdoor facility part, there's a greater chance of grant acquisition. The Land and Water Conservation Fund, again, anything outdoor, that would certainly work.
Down the road, you mean? Yeah.
But usually that maximum grant is what, a few hundred thousand.
50%,
I'll
well,
go
this
with
year it's
200,000.
$1 million. if we were
And
there.
probably, if we try to replace the Forsyth Field, probably look at millions, with all the work that's been done there, so. So it seems like if we want this to pass, we want to focus more on what we don't have, as opposed to
Oh,
replacing what we do
definitely,
have.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but again, those types of things, again, just aligning certain results for this, it's like, make it clear, this is exactly what we're proposing. Yes, it's like we ask your level of support. We ask your level of support for basic facilities. So it's, make sure that there's not some sort of disconnect, that maybe they're envisioning something different than you are.
We did have, just for the committee's knowledge, at the warrant hearing on the second select board meeting in April, when the town warrant got presented, we had a public comment from a citizen that said they knew this survey was about, they're an elderly person, they've been talking to all their other elderly people, they're not able to do the survey because they're elderly, but they don't want this, they don't want to pay taxes, and so I ended up getting permission to kind of make a point of information and said, actually, there's paper versions of the survey and there's places that do it. But just to put that out there.
Yeah, and that would make that clear too,
Yeah.
when you're talking to them, it's like, yes, here's the way we allowed people to do it. We did there's the multiple channels that we distributed and we left it open and available for months. For people to respond. Again, just so there's any pushback saying, well, it's like, because someone's gonna say, well, I didn't never see the survey.
There was quite several comments though that said, first I hear of this.
So,
Wow.
and again, I think you've covered your bases by it. It's like, that was, you put it out there in a number of formats, in a number of places, and communicated through a number of channels.
Mhm.
That it would probably be hard pressed to find a person in this town that didn't hear about the survey at least.
One of the questions, Brian, that we had, early on was what numbers do we need to ensure that this is statistically representative of the community? And so you said we had nearly 900 people
Yeah,
that participated.
Yeah, tricky question.
Sure.
It could be as little as 400. I can make a very valid judgment based upon 400 people.
No,
Sure.
Yes. So there, again, the challenge is not necessarily the number, it's the nature of the people that responded. We just get 900 people that really just believe one thing, and that's the only people that responded. There is variable, it's like, then, maybe, only people that support the thing ever heard about their local people to follow. It's not true, of course, because that's what we didn't see. So what we want to do is just assess, all right, how well do we think this is represented in the community? Well, you have another survey you did in the past that said, well, these results seem to align with those.
Yeah, and that one collected ages
Mhm.
and gave that data to it.
So you're just confirming, so this is not a shock. It's like, all of a sudden this survey says something completely different. So what you have to have you have external validity.
Yeah.
To say, look, this in and of itself is just saying exactly what the prior survey had. Two, again, you have variability in response. It is not just 99% said yes and 1% said no. It's like, the number that probably stands out to me is, it's the, not the yes or no number, it's the it depends and I don't know number. Because, all right, it's like, I might have to get a little more information about this in order for me to truly have an understanding of what you mean. which is what the survey did, right? It's like, so this is what we need. Here's the type of facilities we're talking. And you know, you were upfront with here's the type of facility. Guess what? Let's tell you, this might cost you if we actually have to go ahead and be paid for this with bonding. Again, you gave them, I probably would amounts to the worst case scenario. I would presume there's gonna be some fundraising along the way that will offset the cost of this. At least to some degree.
I almost think the most telling number in the survey is the one about the aquatic stuff. Because these are people that, and there's a lot of people probably self-selected, the people that built this out care about the project. So if you get the ones that care about the project saying, not sure if this is the phase for that, then that's probably why maybe the best chance of having us do something is to have that split vote where you can choose the aquatic part in addition to the phasing.
But again, I mean, I'd say given all those basic factors, not just the survey requires, so I think that you can trust these results. Again, it seems like they truly reflect what's going on out there. Again, also just say, look, this is the second time we asked them, and the results are roughly the same. And look, we put things as bluntly as we possibly could to people. And guess what? These things aren't cheap. It's gonna cost you money. And they still provide us with answers based upon that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anecdotally, we always say, well, there's, you know, I'll just say a third, not that it's a third, but there's a third that will always support it, doesn't matter what the price tag in front of them. There's a third that's gonna say, no way, and then there's a third in the middle somewhere that depends on what the cost is, and so I think, you know, the kind of, maybe that point mark is that if you look at those that are sort of, yeah, competition pool, rec pool, whatever, that's, you know, 15 to 20%. So those are probably that percentage that are, it doesn't matter what you put there, they're gonna be like, yep, I want it all. And maybe, you know,
Go to Starbucks there too.
right, exactly. But then you get the other end of it, which is, okay, you know, the more modest investment, the walking tracks, the center itself. So that's the 2/3 or so that say, yep, you know, we're willing to support this.
And it doesn't matter, you could pay them, it's like, we'll pay you $1 million each to build the community center, and you'd still probably have 5% savings.
Right.
Well, that's sort of why I was curious whether we could dive, or if you have the ability to dive even deeper, because 91 people said after the prices were given, the taxes said they don't want any of these facilities. And I'm curious if there's a way to find out what those 91 people said previously.
Yes, we have.
But also, are they in
So you can
favor
see,
or not in favor?
let's see, you can
of-
see part of them in that chart right before, which is, all right, now they explained it to you, you want exactly what you had. Yeah, it's like X%, about, you know, half said, sure, no, we'll just keep, yeah, what I told you is what I told you, that's what I want. And then you just have a few percent that said, no, it's like, okay, now that I have some conception of what the costs are, now I'm dropping out. So again, they didn't actually, so the way that this is put together, they didn't actually say none of these there. It's like what I did is I aggregated the data into this table across all three of those questions.
I feel like some of those people also just get bored of filling it out, just.
And so there's a few before that said, yes, it's like, if you look at the initial one, there were a few that said, no, I don't want any of these facilities either. But again, it's a question of, remember, we run and everyone said, yes, I support this idea, or I'm not sure. But the only people we kind of routed around and people said, no, I just, you know, I have no interest in community center whatsoever. So what you can do is this, it's like every case has an ID number associated with it. So that, and again, I think the comments I gave you, if you looked at them, the one question where it was yes, no, it depends, I appended that code to it, so you can see, here's what the people that said no said to this question, here's what the people that said it depends said to this question. And yeah, you can get a sense of what people said prior.
Because a majority, at least want an indoor walking track. So my brain is also thinking, well, what else did those 407 people want? Were they the ones that wanted a competition sized pool or a rec pool? Because in my opinion, I don't have competition or rec. We have to do a little bit more research into the two of them anyway, to find out what qualifies for certain criteria. Anyway,
So again, I would be hesitant, you know, so as a survey research, my job is I protect the anonymity and confidentiality responses. However, we didn't ask any, there's no identifying information whatsoever. So if you wanna actually, I can just dump the raw data set into an Excel sheet for you, and you can sort it however you want it to be fun.
Used to do all day, so I love it. Yeah, cause that would, cause then you
Because then you
could
can
follow each
Yeah.
response.
Right, then you can say, okay, this person wanted a pool, what else do they want?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, this person wanted a pool here, do they still want a pool here?
right, exactly. And when did they change their responses, et cetera?
So that's easy enough, like I said, I can easily see this out into an Excel spreadsheet for you all. Like,
Oh, it's just like, this all, but some of the other things that are interesting to me is sort of, you know, to me, what the least wanted, if you will, was the commercial grade kitchen. But definitely but they want a kitchen of some sort, which means we could build a kitchen, but on the other side of the kitchen could be that that maker space craft room potential that only 249 people wanted. But essentially that could kind of be, you know, grown into a larger kitchen.
Seems like the kitchen helps the rental ability.
Oh, 100%.
Because you can do functions, right?
Absolutely.
But also, I mean, I would have to check with Mark on what the difference between a commercial grade kitchen and a small community kitchen.
Tonight, when we go over to St. John's
Yeah.
afterwards,
Mhm.
that is a community center kitchen.
Yeah.
So, and the same that Wiscasset. I don't know what Waterville has. I haven't been to that part of the building.
It has a limited commercial kitchen, I'll call
It does.
it. They prepare food for service to some of the kids there. But
Okay.
it's not what I would call a full commercial kitchen. It does have a large cooking line with a lot of
HVAC system.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's,
And again, what you've assessed here is that, well, I mean, they didn't start out, it's like, well, I mean, obviously, it's like, it didn't start out as well, the most important thing, even without a cost associated with it. So, it's like, that's what they're, again, maybe there, it's like, and this is a challenge, we can assess things, you know, from a certain perspective, but again, this is kind of the need. It's like,
Right.
so,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it's like it's gonna take up the entire first floor of this building. So, yes.
Or they
I'll tell you, it's like Highland has a lovely commercial kitchen, but I don't know if you wanna build that one, it's that big.
It's a big kitchen.
So, and that's the other part, I mean, this gives you general guidance, it's not gonna say, they didn't tell you exactly what they want. Yes, designing, community center has exactly this, all these things. That's, again, not the purpose of a survey like this, I mean, oddly enough, when you can do surveys like that, they're a little more involved and a little more expensive. But this just says, look, gives us a rough idea of conceptually what they're looking for. And it's like, it could be that, you know, maybe the reason that they're deeming a commercial grade kitchen, maybe they don't fully understand the fact that, yes, if we, you know, in essence, the cost of that would be less, because what we do is we make up the money through rentals. I think that it's like, given that choice, people would probably say, you want this or this, knowing that this one will pay for it, so.
So when Mark, you were in the design process, you'd kind of say, this size kitchen would be enough to serve, to help you with, caterer could use it, so that
Correct.
facility.
Yep.
But is it the commercial grade such that I could stop my strawberry jam factory in the community center kitchen?
Right, exactly. And yeah, the number of meals that you're trying to prepare at a single time is an important part. And so a community kitchen is gonna have the very basics that you need to pass the, you know, your health codes. It'll have, you know, separate dishwashing from your prep sinks and all of that. So it'll have enough to be able to do that. But in terms of the number of cooking appliances that you have and the amount of space that you have to actually do prep and cooking, very, very different from a kitchen that's trying to prepare hundreds of meals versus one that's preparing just a few dozen meals.
Was anyone else puzzled by the fact that there were a lot of suggestions in the comment section that wanted an ice rink? Which clearly told me that they didn't understand about an ice rink that was kind of in the process.
I think a lot of people in the community just
Don't
don't realize what's going on in the community.
I can speak to that too. I mean, my daughter is learning figure skating, and until she got into that a little over a year ago, I had no idea that was even in the works. And it's only since she started skating that
Oh, but yeah, I mean, the survey actually provides you, it also provides you an education on it. It's like, I really wish we had one of them, but we have one of those. It's like, maybe it's something that, maybe it's like, this is something we need to learn.
They actually raised another 1.5 million since March. And
Pretty
they're at the
amazing.
point now, they're starting to talk to our planning department about getting ready for sometime this summer to bring in, preliminary planning board stuff, so they can start looking at the approval process. So they're making good progress on that. So I don't think we have to worry about it next week, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more thing, with, at least with the kitchens and the pools, there's no chance that these are the same people at all, right? So.
It is conceivable, we did not preclude them from not having a go.
So I can't say that 570 people voted on a kitchen uniquely, okay? So it could be.
Again, I'm not sure exactly what the overlap is, but
Sure.
but it's like, we did not, it's like in the survey, we did not.
So you can't just combine the percentages for the pool and just and say 70% of people want a pool.
Right.
Okay.
You can say, probably, yeah, I can give you the data and actually you can do that.
Yeah.
But I would say there's probably not a significant kitchen, pool. It's like they're completely in. Yeah, I guess it would be nice to have a kitchen, commercial kitchen.
I just don't see,
Pool and-
if I'm filling this out, I'm not clicking on competition and rec size, I'm clicking on one or the other.
Right.
Which is what I want it, I want it to be that, because that means that there's, 700 people want a pool out of it.
But that's easy enough to figure out, so they can just have that up there.
Nice, good, okay.
Just say X% want some sort of kitchen, X% want some sort of.
Well, I think we have to keep in mind too, that if we're gonna have a multi-use room for rental, for whether it's birthday parties or potentially wedding receptions or who knows what, I mean, that's gonna kind of drive the size of the kitchen too, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't have a room that's gonna service 200 people if you have a kitchen that can only put out 50 meals. Because you're gonna be defeating the purpose.
Well, you're the director of fundraising, so.
Wow.
And like I said, that is the challenge of these types of surveys, which is you can get them concepts to assess, but you can't have them read 10 pages.
Right.
And say, now what do you think about this?
Yeah.
And like I said, there are survey processes that we use where literally what we would do is take these pieces and say, we're gonna put it together for you, tell me what you think about this thing, this, and then have them evaluate every kind of permutation you can think of features. With the idea that now they understand, it's like, what am I'm putting this, and this together. Do I like that, or I like this, and this better?
I think that it's accomplished what our main goal was, and that was the support for some type of community center. And in reading the comments in general, everyone's like, we need a community space, we need a gathering place, we need to build that sense of community and that sense of Topsham and a place to go.
Well, you have that, you have 70% that support the general concept.
Yeah.
You even have to have them evaluate, it's gonna cost this much for the things you want in it, you still have majority support.
Yeah.
So even with some understanding of the cost, maybe.
And like Pam said, it was April, so.
Well, it was taxed, I mean, it was, and March was the the primary, so we
Yeah.
had a certain involved part of the community that showed up there. And I think a lot of, I think a lot of the paper from that day was negative. I don't mean it, but they were the people who put hands on paper versus clicking.
Great. Does anybody else have anything to add here to the third section? Results from survey, because I think the recommendations for the next steps it's gonna come up in number 5 as well. But I honestly think we need to, for next steps, we definitely have to obviously have our visits. And to look at the data a little bit deeper, we probably should consider putting together a fundraising board as well.
I had to pull up on that. I think you want to wait, because the select board was kind of clear on the mission of this committee is to do this needs assessment. think go back to the select board to find out the next steps. I think if we started doing fundraising before the select board said they even want to proceed, that would taint people's view of the process.
I have something to say too. That, just Steve, I think you're right to dive deep into the data, and I really like how you all teased out that somebody could have clicked on kitchen and kitchen, you know, the commercial and the more basic one, and those collectively together, as well as for the pool information. I think that's really important. So.
It's on the to-do list.
But I'm not suggesting per se, start looking into fundraising, but we have to consider that step for sure. And obviously, I feel like the town would come back and say, well, what are your ideas on fundraising? No,
I guess, I understood what you said is you're putting a committee together to start fundraising, which I don't think we want to do that.
no, we definitely can't just start fundraising, but it should be on our mind instead of, I mean, because of most of the people that I talked to, which we didn't ask them, if I told them the truth as to when this thing was gonna be built, they would freak out. So I'm trying to think, how fast can we get this done while I'm still, you know, above ground? So,
I think when you do the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, you're gonna wanna obviously give all the statistics, show Mark's portion of the facility and what people, what the numbers and such are. And then you need, I think it's reasonable to have after tonight, this is what we would suggest you consider doing. Don't tell them, but just say, this is what I would, you know, we as a group would consider that you do. Go to the next step of the, is it feasibility now, right?
Yeah, people, their concept.
Yeah.
Concept.
Go through the feasibility portion, start to get some suggestions for fundraising. I mean, I think you gotta, when you go to the board to give them this stuff, you need to have an idea of where you wanna go next and say that at the end of the meeting.
But I don't think you want to actually go there until.
No, yeah, you wanna get them to say,
I also think that we should probably have a side meeting, a private meeting,
No
to
such
go-
thing.
to go over data specifically. No, I mean, maybe not with Mark and Brian, more of a.
Three members of the committee get together, or a majority, which I think one three, but that now becomes a public meeting.
Oh, it can be a not so private meeting. Public
Thank
as well.
Can I add to the plans that as I look back at the mission of the community center is to understand the desires and needs of the Topsham community. So I think that is a check. And then to identify accessible, affordable, sustainable recreational solutions that will serve the multi-generational community and social connections among Topsham residents. So really that is the next step, is the feasibility, is to identify the accessible, affordable, sustainable recreation solutions. That's the next part. Complete our
So I-
mission.
you're asking them, when we present this portion, then we're asking them to let us take one more step on with the feasibility. And there still are funds for the feasibility if
Yeah, I
they should
think-
choose to do
I think
that.
it could come from the
Community.
same committee,
Yeah.
community fund that paid for the first main.
For the first portion, okay.
Yeah, I think, Leslie,
We don't
to
have to
sort
wait
of
for text.
one point that you made regarding the mission, which is understanding the accessible and affordable. This survey actually went a little bit further than the last one in that it started to evaluate those aspects of it, because people could in real time understand what would this mean to my taxes. I think you've got a little bit of that groundwork laid, which will help you in the next feasibility study.
But I think it's hard to get too far fundraising too, unless we know where. And then Mark does some of his work to the design, because I'm not gonna be, I mean, I might be very willing to open up my checkbook for this at some point. I don't think I'm gonna open my checkbook until I know what the plan is, or think it's actually gonna happen, which
That's pretty typical. And if someone's gonna commit funds, they wanna know what it looks like, they wanna know how much it's gonna cost, and then you actually have a real plan for it.
And I think another factor is land. if we can get land that doesn't cost us, it's a whole lot different than having to look for this.
Are you familiar, Mark, with some towns that did fundraise for part of it, or did they use, fundraising consultants to assist, or people that do that, or
Yeah, I'm trying to think of,
do they set up a nonprofit, do they do the town's
they
thing?
definitely set up a nonprofit, it's a lot harder than you'd think. And so, there's a couple of different, communities that did capital campaigns, brought in a fundraising consultant, evaluated sort of what means there was available in the community to support something. And you want to have a significant portion that you can raise from the deeper pockets, because it takes a lot of big sales and a lot of smaller donations to really make it, make a sizable difference in terms of the fundraising component of it. But the most successful ones, it's almost, I don't think I've ever seen a grassroots that's been able to sort of, just because it's a full-time effort to go, and you have to have the knowledge of how to do it and how to do it well. So, but, and there are consultants out there that we work with.
I can tell you for the high school, for the turf field, we had a fundraising committee that was comprised of each of the community of the district, and then members of the school community, and then various other people who worked for nonprofits who knew, and investment people who knew. And it took us a good year and a half to raise 250,000.
Yeah.
So, and that was on a volunteer base, that was grassroots, that wasn't.
That sounds about right.
It sounds to me that the next steps are for, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand, is for us as a committee to put together, tied in with all the information that we have and the report that you're gonna write, information to present, that we as a committee presented to the select board. Do we have any idea, do you have any thoughts as to what that timeline would look like? Are we thinking that this is something that we're gonna present to the board in a month or in 3 months?
It's easy enough to get on their agenda, so basically, whenever you're ready. So I think the most important thing to do is get those visits done, because I think probably Mark's gonna incorporate some of that information too. Another interesting thing for the visits will be how many staff members does it take to run these places, so they can think about operational budget as well as, the building of it. But if the report's done by mid-June, we can get you in front of the select board, by early July. So we set the agenda about 10 days out. I know that they're interested in the project, but it's not like they're gonna have to wait 3 months to get before them. So that's why I think your best chance of keeping support is to do things sequentially. So that's why I wouldn't jump into the fundraising part until they told you they want you to proceed, because it starts to look like, carts before the horse. And I don't think that for the reasons we discussed, I don't think the fundraising is gonna be that effective until some of these other questions are answered.
Well, you can't fundraise until you have a definitive amount that you're fundraising for with a definitive purpose.
Right.
You can go to anybody and say, oh, I'm fundraising for the community center. Well, yeah, but what aspect of it? You know, I mean, for the building itself, for the, for the furniture, for, whatever. People want to know details and exactly where their money is going. And am I gonna be able to deduct it? My taxes? That's a huge factor as well. So.
86 fundraising, okay? Keep beating on it.
Yeah.
Which the answer to that will be yes.
Yeah.
Because even if you just donate to the town, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, is it typically done in just a written report and then we discuss it, or is it like we're doing a PowerPoint and kind of going through high level?
I think they would like to, if I was a select board member, which I'm not, I think what they would like to have is some written materials they can review in advance, then have a brief presentation at the meeting, let's say 20 minutes, half hour, whatever it takes. Then an opportunity for questions. And then if Mark can be there, I'm sure they'd really appreciate that, because they can ask questions from his expertise about things like rentals and next steps and all that stuff.
Well, so the reason I ask is because I kind of see this coming together in a short PowerPoint kind of presentation, and things like what do we consider next steps to be, would be
Beyond.
opening discussions about a fundraising effort or next steps, you know, from what we've seen, we would have to look at this, this and this. So I almost see that being on suggested next steps kind of
I
side.
almost see three next steps, you know, not next steps for tonight, next steps for if they decide to proceed. One would be the second part of the contract for Mark's firm, so that, but maybe before that's executed, some authorization for me to talk to a couple places to find out if I can cut any deals for some land. Then that part probably becomes an executive session. And then instruction to the committee to start looking into ways to fund, you know, as Mark said, is researching some possible consultants or talking to other towns, how they did it, start showing the fundraising background. And then those things can almost be happening simultaneously, although Mark may be holding off some of the second part until he sees if I can make any progress.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to go very far on the design until you're.
Without a say.
Where you put it, yeah.
I also think another part of it might be at the end to discuss as well as fundraising are associations or partnerships that exist that we could use.
Well, at some point, they're gonna want to run the place too.
Right.
All right, so we, obviously it's visits. Our secret but not secret meeting needs to happen as well. We definitely need to have a meeting to data together. Go over. There's no doubt, because that would lead us to the next.
So you could appoint a subcommittee of 3 people to go work and do data work. That's not enough to have a quorum for the group, so would be fine to.
Well, I don't mind it if it's one of these meetings, I just don't think Brian or Mark would have to be there, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's not a secret meeting, it's just a meeting without Mark and Brian.
Well, we'll pretend it's secret.
Great. So that takes care of 3 and 5. Motion to move on.
Well, I think we have to kind of try to find a
Set some
date for a
dates.
tour that works for folks here, and then I can,
Is that not done?
we haven't picked another date. It was supposed to have been this last Saturday and got canceled because
Right.
Wisconsin couldn't do it. So, this Saturday is out for me because we have pictures at the, baseball field. The 18th is a possibility. And then I don't have another Saturday to do it until the 8th of June. I've got Memorial Day weekend, I'll be away, and then the 1st is our fishing rally and other things.
If there's a way that it can, if it's easier for other people to go during the week and then I can catch up on notes after, that's okay too.
How many people would be available to go during the day, a weekday?
I can pretty much do any day.
Probably do that. Not after the 14th though.
Not after the 14th?
No. I just realized. That's a week project. I think I'll still shoot first.
Well, why don't I try for the week of the 13th and see what I can get? And we can, I mean, I'm more than happy to take pictures of facilities that we go to and provide that information. So we'll see what we can get the week of the 13th, to make it. Either have to be probably Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of that week. So I'll run with that
I'm in
right
the
now.
facilities office, don't hold it up on me.
Okay, all right. Well, I would think that for them, it would be easier on a weekday because they don't have obligations. I mean, part of Wiscasset was that their opening day ceremonies got postponed and that was the conflict, so. So why don't we look for the 15th, 16th, or 17th, and I'll see what I can come up with the 2 parties.
Yeah, I can tell you the 16th, I have 2 doctor's appointments, so right away, I'm out that
Wednesday
day.
or Friday?
Wednesday or Friday is
Okay.
fine for me,
All right.
but
I'll
don't
try to
make it
work with
about me,
those.
but just to
Okay.
let you know right
Okay.
away.
Okay, and we do have a tour tonight, which I think
Yeah.
will open your eyes to a lot that you might not, how many of you have been in there before? Okay, so 3 of you kind of know, but I think it's worthwhile for the rest of you to see it because, I mean, you're gonna get the budget that what they fundraise, but the one thing you have to remember with that facility is that the facade of the facility costs more than the building did because they wanted it to match the environment of the community.
So that covers our touring.
Yeah.
Of the community centers. Perfect.
I have a thought on my mind that I just wanted to throw out there, and I'm not sure who it goes to, but I want to consider as we're looking at these places and sort of envisioning all of this, what the growth of Topsham is looking like and the size of it that we want to consider. So as it appears, I don't know the background of it, that the town of Topsham, the town hall was built in a way that will hold us for a long time, and I just want to always keep that in our mind that we're not just looking for the next 10 years. This is a building that's going to be around for a while and grow. So just a thought.
Is that something that's already factored into what you do?
Well, I was gonna say, in some ways, you want to make sure that as the design progresses, that you build in enough flexibility so that as you grow, the facility itself can grow too. And so, even to the point of you have the ability to add spectator seating in the future that could be expanded, things like that. So there are a lot of ways that you can build that in. Because what we don't want to do is build something that's too big right now, and that can't, that isn't financially viable. You want to
Yes.
build what you can now.
Right. We want it to definitely support what it needs to. And I think about how the school budget is decreasing by 4 staff members at the high school level because of a decrease in student population over X amount of years. So they're now tightening up their staffing to match the amount of students. So it might be interesting to look at the growth or decrease of students and of the elderly population and the variety of that as we present to the select board. I think that's interesting information.
Yeah, we get that, and I can get that for you, Mark, if you guys want, because we get the school
You get the school numbers, the October.
Yeah, we get the school number enrollments because we base that on a lot of our programs, what we anticipate for growth and what's coming.
Yeah, that'd actually probably be helpful. We can certainly look at the last 10 years and see what the trend has been.
I would assume it's like, 10 years ahead. The state actually does demographic projections like down.
They have good projections. Schools sometimes will take them on as part of the.
So I know, it's like, I used to be able to go, it's like, I mean, even back in the early 2000s, I could look at town projections up to 2035. So they'll do basic demographic projections for you, if you're curious.
The anecdotally, the unfortunate thing of our housing becoming less affordable is we're getting fewer families. So it's maybe people sent away from, drawn by COVID, they left the cities and come here, but they're kind of older and past childbearing years. So it's a lot of our growth has been in Island Green type as opposed to this, young families with kids just because they can't afford to live in top.
Which is what the state does, that's why they update their projections every year. So that they try to take that into account, they're doing population projections.
Minutes?
We're gonna have a motion to do the minutes next meeting. Since we don't have the minutes to review.
Oh, okay, I thought folks had looked at that.
I looked at them, but I think it would be easier just to read them and accept them at the next meeting.
I haven't even seen them. Is that
Yeah.
supposed to be my job?
No.
No.
No, it was, they were sent out right after the meeting, but I will, they're on the web, but I will print them.
Oh, well, that's on my own.
I apologize, I printed the agenda, I didn't think about the minutes, I apologize.
It's fine, we can just schedule another meeting or accept them on the next meeting. Great. Which should be an action step to set up our next meeting.
Well, I,
Secret meeting?
secret meeting.
No.
Well, that's
All right, no fundraising, no secret.
My suggestion was gonna be, since we have it set up for the first and third Wednesday, that our third Wednesday meeting could be the committee itself, talking about the digging, doing a deeper dive into the numbers and starting to think about what a presentation might look like. The bones of a presentation and adding in what we think some of those slides would look like.
Do you mean Monday, rather than Wednesday?
I meant Monday. Did I say Wednesday?
20th?
Yeah, what, 20's open, if that's what you want.
No.
Is it Wednesday, third Wednesday's town meeting?
Don't want that.
Nope. Wednesday, the 20th at 5:15,
I'm good for the 20th.
and hopefully we'll get a tour in before then.
I'm not available on that day.
I'm not available that day yet. I can get coverage though. Oh, wait,
How does Tuesday look that week?
I can do it early on that Monday. Oh, no, I can't.
Can't do Tuesday.
I mean, I'd almost recommend you do what you've been kind of doing, and you pick a certain day of the month and just stick that way, because it's, the town calendar gets so full so quick, it's hard to keep moving things around. So maybe you just wait till June 3rd, and then in the meantime, you have your tours.
And we'll be working on a draft of the report as well.
So, yeah, the 20. Or is there some?
I'm fine with June 3rd.
I think we were waiting until June.
June 3rd?
For the next one?
I won't be here for that one. Please go on without me.
Are we looking at being at the select board in June? What date is that?
So there's one on the 6th and there's one on the 20th,
Sorry.
but again, you want the report before you go
I
there.
can do the 27th.
Yeah, well, we would want to develop a draft, get comments from all of you, make edits, and we want to finalize that and submit it in advance so that they have time to review it before the presentation.
I mean, I'm not saying you have to stick with the first Monday in June, month of the month, but I think it's good to have a regular meeting date, just to work both your schedules as well as us making sure we have rooms and stuff available and staff members available.
I just didn't know if we wanted to wait that long.
Right, because I was with you, because I know that if we got together and talked about that, then we would have a lot of questions for the two of you at the next following
Which would be
meeting.
the June 3rd one.
Still try.
Nothing says that, yeah, some of you can't get together and talk about data in the interim, so.
As long as there's not three of us.
But actually, it's
long
four.
as there's not more.
Yeah.
We just have to record it.
If
we have all four
It
of
doesn't
us
necessarily have to
together.
be reported, that's the advertised as a public meeting.
Got
You
it.
have more than 4,
Okay,
4 or more, because that's a quorum.
so,
Okay,
good, June 3rd?
so we're taking the 20th off? Okay.
And we will invite Brian and Mark to June 3rd, or is it super secret?
Might as well invite him.
Might as well. Thank you.
I'd be happy to work with one or two of you, in between now and then to go over data inside if anybody's interested and try to find a date outside of tonight.
I can do it, I'm
Great.
next door,
Yeah,
so,
we'll meet at your house.
okay.
Perfect. Great.
Wait a minute, you're not allowed to allergic to cats, I heard.
I don't want to talk cats right now. It was bad. It was a very bad day.
Uh-oh, okay.
Okay,
We are welcome at St. John's right now.
perfect.
Oh,
Motion to adjourn?
I second.
Is it where the church is?
If you go into St. John's parking lot, park right in the parking lot, we can meet
Okay.
there and we'll go in. Okay.
Bye, Leslie.